I love time travel stories, even ones that aren't great live in my head. Whether they be upbeat, depressing, or deliberately obtuse, I will always get enjoyment out of them, especially if it's in a video game. Last year I looked at another divisive game named either Shadow of Destiny or Shadow of Memory, depending on your region, and despite having faults big enough they stood out to me, I still had fun on that ride, and I will say it's a game I like, even if I feel dirty saying that. The game was the passion project of Junko Kawano, who wrote it, directed it, and even did character designs, plus she voiced a cat. She worked on some other games, but the next one that wasn't a PS2 entry in the Suikoden series was the Nintendo DS's very own Time Hollow. It also features time travel, so that makes it a spiritual successor apparently, even if these are very different beasts. Strangely enough, Shadow was re-released a bunch, so it ended up on PlayStation 2, Xbox, PC, and then out of nowhere on the PSP. So it makes it even more perplexing that Time Hollow is still stuck on the Nintendo DS, especially since this is, at least to me, the far superior game. Though they are quite different games despite being adventure games with time travel. Here we've traded in the 3D explorative space for the Nintendo DS's specialty of static screens we tap on, and a map screen separating everything. Though as a game with limited inputs, they've made sure to please everyone. The D-pad and face buttons mirror things the touchscreen itself does, which means this game can be entirely played with just a stylus. Given all the different methods of how you can control things, you will find what works best for you. And I know people who watch these videos don't actually go and play the game, this is just background noise. But if you decide to play it, this flexibility will make it the kind of game where you could play it on a computer with a mouse in hand while you eat a pizza with the other hand or something. Plus I'm sure this is easily doable on phones. Though I'm not encouraging illegal emulation either. Just buy an expensive cartridge from a reseller where none of the money goes to the property holders. That's the only ethical way to support the property holders. Anyway, in this game, things start off right before Ethan Kairos' 17th birthday. He's a normal student who I will armchair diagnose because he's obsessed with clocks to a weird degree. He investigates his bedroom thoroughly with running commentary and then talks to his parents downstairs in the kitchen. This is probably a normal night for him, outside this particular conversation being about his birthday, but this isn't to last. After he goes to bed for the night, he awakes to a world where both his parents disappeared many years ago, and he now lives with his uncle, who previously wasn't a big part of his life. This new world is complete with Ethan gaining some vague memories of his new reality, which will solidify once he gets more details to confirm everything. Thankfully, Ethan discovers an item that he can see but others can't. It's called the Hollow Pen. It allows users to draw circles in the air that when in the location of a specific memory, will open up a portal to the accompanying time. It's very specific. The reality on the other side is paused. This isn't a portal for him to walk through, and it's not really a way for him to talk to people on the other side of this portal. This is a form of very specific time manipulation that keeps us strictly in the present at all times. But it means that we can investigate a locale years in the past, or take an item from that time to the present, or reverse that. So it often means Ethan will write something in the present on a piece of paper, and drop it in the past for someone else to read. Once the portal is closed, the new reality takes over, once again complete with Ethan gaining some vague new memories. With this power, Ethan plans to find a way to bring his parents back, though a lot of this is out of his control, and time travel ripple effects can be a bitch. Throughout the shifting timelines, we can check the status of other characters, and there's a lot of cool changes here for the kinds of diligent weirdos like me that compulsively check a character's stats screen. Wow, it's like another messy time travel game I enjoy and am a little embarrassed to say that I do. And the best thing about being in these menus is we can look at the character names. They are awful and I love them. Maybe you'll see a theme. There are characters like Morris Fivet, Emily Niner, Jason 11. We get the full range from 1 to 12. It is great. It's especially helped with the menu showing a very nice clock motif. And while it's easy to mock the character names, I can't do the same for the pixel art. All the characters here have portraits that are top notch. A lot of work was clearly put into these. And while not as great, the rest of the art here, including the full body pictures of characters, all show lots of care. And it's topped off with some nice animated cutscenes that do their job. They're here whenever the game needs that extra flourish. The animation is solid, and the dub voice acting is sufficient, but is a little awkward because it's all timed to Japanese speech, meaning everything is abrupt without proper spacing, much like my videos. And since the DS has relatively small screens and wasn't home to huge amounts of storage, these cutscenes are chunky and I love them. Look at that artifacting. For the gameplay itself, it's pretty simple, though I do appreciate that some moments here do have multiple solutions, and they don't really affect anything outside some extra dialogue. It shows the Shadow of Destiny pedigree here, though it's a lot less noticeable, since this is the kind of game you only need to beat once to see the majority of things, though there is a small exception to that I'll get to later. Since our time manipulation is basically drawing an enclosed shape on the bottom of a screen, and messing with what's on the other side, the top screen displays what the scene you're reaching back to was like, so there's very little guesswork on what you have to circle. There's a visual guide at all times. And it is important because you can't mess up too much. You have limited uses of your holo pen. Each use drains a single bar from this meter, and if you use up all of them, you'll die. The explanation is that the pen drains the user's life and will make them age more rapidly. A good example of this is Ethan's father, who was the previous holopen user before the story started, and he looks a lot older than his wife even though they are about the same age. The pen's limited uses can be averted by scouring the map for your cat, Socks. Tapping him gives you an extra use for the pen. He is a good boy. But whenever you finish a chapter of the story, your pen's total maximum uses will change to whatever the current amount of charges were at the time. So if you're only down 1 bar when you start a chapter, the pen's maximum health will decrease by 1. But if you end the chapter with 3 bars drained, congrats, your pen now has drastically shorter amounts of uses. You'll never get those back, and it adds up over the course of the game. And if you're not careful, you'll end up with a tiny little holopen meter. The story does shake things up considerably because this isn't just Ethan playing around until he fixes everything. We have added complications. Least drastic of these is Corey 12s, who we meet early on. She's an anomaly that isn't from Ethan's original world, and while she doesn't wield a holopen, she is aware of them and cryptically won't tell us much more. However, much more is that there's another person using the holopen in the same relative present as Ethan, and this turns into a battle to undo the mistakes of a mysterious antagonist who we later learn is trying to mess up Ethan's life. This leads to a lot of messed up alternate timelines, complete with murdered friends. Though none of those are as bad as what happens to the dogs. They died through complete accidents even though they're good boys. And the only thing almost as good as those boys is the music. This is all appropriate background music that elevates the wide variety of scenes the story encompasses. Each is a bop and deserves to be held up as some of the finer thematic tunes of the era. Unfortunately, this game's scarcity and the lack of releases has opened up a big issue for those of us in the future who can't just buy brand new DS games. For some reason, we cannot delete the save data here, not even that trick when you boot up the game works. And this is a problem, because Time Hollow does something really cute for replays. Whenever you start a new file on a cartridge that has already completed the game, we're given a choice in the opening minutes that wasn't originally available to players. It's not labelled as a New Game Plus option, though they probably trusted the honor system for the final warning, where it asks us if we recognize a particular character. Basically, you're given a choice that seems inconsequential, and then a second choice, which like I said is based on if you recognize a particular character. If you say yes to the latter one, the game does a super quick mini campaign that ends almost instantly. This is just a fun bonus to shake things up, but it does spoil the entirety of the game's ending and a lot of the major plot points. This is meant to be just a fun wink and a nudge for replays. It's a really cute addition. So when you buy an expensive secondhand cartridge that doesn't support the original developers and doesn't let you erase the data, just make sure you don't follow your cat at the beginning of the game, or else you're in the spoiler zone. Oh, and I guess if you emulate this game with a downloaded ROM, you won't run into any of these issues at all. Huh. Not that I'm encouraging it or anything, I'm just saying it happens to be the best way to play this game for a newcomer, because it doesn't come with any instructions on avoiding massive spoilers 5 minutes into the game. At least the next DS game I'll be talking about doesn't come with as many weird instructions, but it's something else just as weird. Henry Hatsworth in The Puzzling Adventure is a 2D platformer with some nice combat and once again phenomenal pixel art and music. Oh, and it's also a legally distinct version of Puzzle League. The top screen's a platformer, the bottom screen's a puzzle game, and it somehow all works. Now I just need to find a way to stretch that into a full video.